You seem hungry. Good thing your table is ready with Saturday Omaha.
Saturday, Omaha.
Eat this. The cuffs are up. It's like TJ's ready to forecast a hurricane coming in. There's no sleeves. Forget rolling up your sleeves. There's just no sleeves or very short sleeve.
Well, Dave here. I'm out on location getting some pasta in this hurricane. The winds are really whipping up out here. The hail is repeating me on the head, and my mafalda is getting cold.
And that's where we're going to start our show here on Saturday Omaha. That's right, Dave and TJ are back here on yet another episode, because it's always yet another after the first one. And TJ and I today are bringing a long-standing, moderately standing, a while-standing restaurant that we've had the owner, one of, and chef on the show, Piero Cotrina. And, of course, Wendy Delgado being the other half of WD Cravings. But for some reason, maybe it's just because we like having Pierre on the show, we haven't done a food overview of WD Cravings yet, TJ. So I think it's about time we make that happen. How are you feeling about that approach?
I'm feeling pretty good. We're doing something unusual here,
We are.
that's not having curious session-specific tasty food.
Ooh.
Or getting the breakfast sandwiches, which we'll get into. 'Cause This is revealing some background here.
Yes.
This is, I think, the third time I've had actual menu dinner food from WD, whereas I have very much lost count of the number of times I've gotten breakfast sandwiches because I get out of work in the morning, and there's only so many places one can get short ribs at 8 a.m.
Ooh, and we will definitely be talking about those because that's a great thing to do at 8 a.m. And as with any restaurant, do always check their socials and websites for current hours. But the location is definitely a fixed item, and you can find them at 7110 North 102nd Circle. I think we definitely have to talk about the unique situation that is WD Cravings as far as the amazingness of what happens there. You just mentioned that you can get short ribs there at 8 a.m. And in the evening, you can get in-house made pasta. And we're going to dig into this. But they have a drive-through. They have a dine-in spot, which feels at once fancy and not. And then you have Wendy's French patisserie there, so you can get French desserts and other things that are there. And there's a patio. There's a drive-through. There's the inside. So there's probably just maybe 2 tables on the outside. And you can look for the WD orange-ish, peach-ish white banner hanging out there. And then on the inside, I'm going to go for, what do you think, Teach? 10 tables, give or take a little bit? Maybe 12 with the back area. Does that sound about right? Give or take.
Yeah, it's hard for me to envision because I didn't actually count, and
Sure.
there's some different styles and some big tables and some small tables and then the super secret table in the back.
Yes. And when you walk in, the first thing that you're going to see when you open that door, you have the pastry case. There's all sorts of desserts there, from cannolis to cakes to, there was even a tiny apple pie when we were in this time. And then you order at the counter. They're preparing food hot and fresh for you. So you walk in, and the way it's laid out, you might think that it's, I guess, that fast casual model. And certainly you can get those desserts ready to go, or you can they do coffee and things there too. Those are just ready to hand over the counter. But when you get an entree, they are making chef magic happen in the kitchen right there for you. And of course, there's also that gigantic wheel of Grana Padano cheese, and we'll talk about that in a second. But you can also go through the drive-thru and get these things. But before we get to the food, there's an important thing that people need to know, TJ. The zip code is 68122. You thought we were going to get through an episode without a zip code. Okay, maybe you weren't
I
thinking
had
that,
hopes
but,
in
you know.
vain, but
Well, but
dashed upon the rocks they are.
that sounds like a delicious cocktail.
It does, actually.
Yeah,
yes.
you know,
Well, a dash of something.
dash
a
of-
little bit of bitters. Or
Maybe
something.
maybe the bitters on the rocks, and then some type of whiskey or some other bourbon or whatever on top of there. That sounds good. But
We've been discussing way too many cocktails today before the show.
Yeah, we've been discussing cocktails before the show, but we didn't drink any cocktails before the show. You do have
Well,
a
that's why we're still thinking about cocktails.
you do have a mason jar in your hand right now, but it is filled with a hydrating quantity of a whole lot of water, and I happen to have a coffee over here with a little half and half. So nary a cocktail for this.
Yes, the Metropolitan Utilities District finest shine, earth shine, dirt shine, pipe shine.
Pipe shine. I
Pipe
like
shine.
that. Please put pipe shine in the official Saturday glossary of terms as a new term for tap water. There it is. Let's talk about some food. I think we need to speak on these things. We've been there many times. We actually did some pasta making with Chef Piero there at one point, and taught us how to do what they do in the restaurant, and that is take raw ingredients, flour, and an egg, and make noodles, and then take those two simple things and turn them into something that does not eat in a simple fashion, in that it's greater than the sum of its parts. Flour and egg just sounds very, simple two ingredients, but it becomes more than just that.
Well, the in-house made pasta, and I would encourage everyone who has not done it, now that I have done it, to make your own pasta at least once or twice,
Oh yeah, for sure.
just to become familiar with the language of pasta and the process. I've seen that on a number of food blogs and such, talking about the importance of a very clearly laid out recipe when talking about bread or pasta, despite the fact that it's pretty easy to learn from someone who already knows it, because humidity and the amount of handling of flour, gluten production and all this kind of stuff plays into it. So it feels very natural when learning from someone who speaks the, and I quote, language of pasta, or language of bread, or in, we will touch on this only briefly, but the amount of stuff you've been doing is not something we have time to cover today. The language of pizza crust.
Oh yes,
All of these things. So if you if you learn from someone who already speaks that language, it becomes very clear and interesting. But the point here being that this exists, the language of pasta, and really thinking about the things that go into it, those multiple layered pasta where you're folding it over itself repeatedly, which is common in making pasta. And now that we've done that, when I get my my teeth on a nice al dente piece of real scratch-made pasta, and you bite into it and you can feel those individual layers,
kind of your teeth going through them.
despite the fact that that is a relatively smooth and soft food stuff.
Yes.
It's not exactly a crack, but when you're aware of it, you can almost feel it like it is. Crack, 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 crack. The experience of a single piece of homemade pasta, when you are aware of that, is something to behold in and of itself. Something
it really is
marvelous. With you are now, with your very adult foodie tastes, transported back to your childhood, where buttered noodles is plenty.
Oh yes, that's a really valid point. I like that a lot. You got to the layer element that I wanted to relay, and that's the thing, is that the food at WD, you're getting this chef driven food in such an approachable environment. And Wendy and Piero both have worked at other restaurants. Piero was at Via Farina before. These folks are bringing experience to their brick and mortar. And since it sounds like I'm towards the summary, we need to get into the preface and the chapters.
Well, Dave,
of
we're having
food.
dessert first, is what's happening here. So we've done pasta once, and I remember some of it, and I would like to learn more. However, I would like this experience again, because I just want to listen to Chef Katrina talk about food some more,
a lot
in
of
detail.
passion.
The amount of thought that both Piero and Wendy put into what they are doing, is incredible. It is manifold. The amount
It's
of
Mafalda even.
Indeed,
Yeah.
everything is at once complex and simple. See, we're doing this. We're doing the summary at the front again. But the restaurant itself, it's casual and fancy.
Yeah.
It's fine
drive
dining
through and dine in.
Yeah, it's fine dining you can get from a drive-through, and even just the noodles on their own. We'll talk about the dishes as a whole, but even just the noodles on their own are an interesting textural and flavor
Yeah.
experience.
French patisserie in a drive-through, anyone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In touching on the breakfast sandwiches, I don't have
Let's
those
start with breakfast.
in my notes in detail. We can probably gloss over them a little bit, despite the fact that they are the thing I have had the most. But darn it, I can get my meatball sandwich, my smoked chili burrito, my short rib sandwich, and a couple of petit fours with a half decent latte in the morning. Like, you can't do all of those things.
This is a gem, and the thing is, it is a hidden gem because it is way out there in the Cherry Hills off of the Irvington exit off the interstate in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's really kind of tucked away by itself. It is not on a main street, and then here's this place, like you said, you can get all these things via your car window or, of course, dining in. So that's wild. Our episode here is definitely focused on their pasta dinner menu, but I'm glad that TJ brought up breakfast because it's a really important thing. The breakfast sandwiches, I think, are probably the first thing that I ever had from WD and through that drive-through, and they usually have three of them. They have the chicken, they have the short rib breakfast sandwich, which is my favorite, and I believe there's a third one. Is it a meatball?
There's a meatball, and so recent changes that may not be forever changes. It may just have been the last time I went, but it was
Yeah.
effectively the full menu
Oh,
last time. Like,
at
they usually
breakfast?
have the chalkboard written up. Well, okay, I'm guessing I can't get the cheese wheel that time of the morning, and
Sure,
we'll talk
sure,
more
sure,
about
sure,
that
sure.
in a bit. But the full list of breakfast items just off the menu. Normally, there's the chalkboard with the sandwiches of the
Yeah.
day kind of thing. The chalkboard was not there. It was order off the menu, and
Okay.
order off the menu I did, and got quite a few things the last time I was in for
Oh,
breakfast,
hello.
just to try some of the things I missed. And I'm scrolling through the online menu now, and I'm still missing things. The big takeaway is the short rib sandwich or the meatball sandwich or those kind of things.
Rib sandwich. I do need to summarize the short rib breakfast sandwich before we start talking about dinner stuff too. But ingredients on your short rib breakfast sandwich are egg, so it does have egg on there, but it really kind of becomes.
Yeah, but they're almost creamy
I
while being
know,
fluffy.
I know exactly, and that's what I was going to say. Is you almost end up with kind of this collective sauce over the short ribs. So egg, fontina, cheese sauce, and an English muffin, and of course short rib. And I don't know where else you're getting a short rib breakfast sandwich through a drive-through, but here's the thing: is that this sandwich is so satisfying. It is so delicious. Although, a word of warning to you, the driver, going through the drive-through window and getting yourself a short rib breakfast sandwich, you might want to park with some napkins for this little beastie. The cheese sauce and everything that's there, I find it napkin worthy. So it is savory, slightly towards the messy side of things in the most delicious way.
The chicken tinga burrito is
I haven't
flippin'
had
delicious
it.
with that little bit of pesto cream in there,
What?
so it's a little bit herbaceous, and that, because it is tends to be packed rather full.
Yeah.
That one, despite being a burrito, may also try and escape on you a little bit, and again has that delicious dinner feel while still having flavors that are appropriate to breakfast. I think that's for those who are looking for a more hearty, interesting breakfast that still
Yeah.
feels like breakfast. This might actually be your choice. Would be the chicken tinga. I was surprised at how much I liked it. Chefs make this stuff, and it could not be more clear, despite the fact that it is pretty fast and very comfortable and casual.
Yeah, definitely chef driven. And speaking of tasty things, should we traverse to the land of pasta, of which we got many?
I believe that is a land I enjoy occupying. Recently, more so perhaps than ever.
Wow. Okay. The land of pasta is excellent. Many shapes, sizes, textures, etc. And of course, we're talking about lots of in-house made pasta from an expert. Chef Cotrina has been at many different restaurants. Certainly has a passion for pasta, as we learned when we were learning from him, making pasta by hand, and his approach to feel and understanding the moisture content of the pasta dough, making sure that it rests properly, making sure that there's care, and that really does come out on the plate. I think I'm going to start with the mac and cheese, TJ. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just mac and cheese, but this particular dish is much more than that. Well, first of all, you've got a shell pasta in here, which I think is kind of fun. I always like how a shell pasta can trap some cheese within the pasta itself. But you have a delicious cheese sauce on here. It's smooth and creamy, which I like. It has been, I think, well documented that I like a creamy mac and cheese versus kind of more of that baked stiff style. That's just my preference. But this also has mushrooms and peppers in it. So, first of all, I like a base mac and cheese. And you might say, that's the childhood favorite. Yes, and I love that. I love that very much. But this sort of takes it to a little bit of a different elevation in that it's adding extra notes to the song, if you will, and adding those mushrooms and peppers in there, giving it a little bit of extra depth. It's got a smoky and creamy essence to it, and I'm going to say a Chef Piero Cotrina signature acidic pop. Now, Chef Cotrina is from Peru, and quite often in his dishes and when we were making pasta with him, he likes to take a squeeze of lemon and put that over the dish for a little bit of acid, a little bit of complexity. And I believe I recall him saying once that sometimes when he was at other restaurants, the executive chef or somebody would try to come over and just stop him from, because that's what he wants to do. But this is his place and Wendy Delgado's place, and they can do what they want. And I like that this is his food. And when you taste this, yes, it's a mac and cheese. You have what is at once familiar. Nice cheese sauce and a shape you're familiar with, some, little shells. But then it just adds those different threads and different color combinations in a food form to that dish. And I just find it delicious. You also get, with many of the pasta dishes, a side of delicious focaccia toast. Focaccia's delicious. Then you toast it and you've got butter on there, so you've got a great combo there, and you can grab a slice of that to kind of intersperse with your meal. And the mac and cheese also comes with fried chicken on it. Now, the fried chicken here is more what you might experience on the chicken parmesan, which we will be able to touch on here in a minute, but in this case, like a breaded chicken cutlet with a thin yet excellent crunchy texture on the chicken itself, and then it's sliced into strips. And so you sort of have not quite a full slice all the way through, and I don't mean that in the vertical sense, but more in the horizontal sense, so that the edges of the fried chicken are connected at the very, very end, but you have these individual pieces. And I do believe I got two kind of flanks of chicken, if you will, on this pasta. And so you have the crunch of the breading. The chicken inside is very thin, and then you can mix up that crunch with the saucy cheesiness of the noodles, mushrooms and pepper mixed in, or you can even add some crunch from that focaccia toast, or maybe kind of drag that through your cheese sauce. And I know TJ with one of his dishes may have expunged the remaining sauce on not the cheese sauce, but a different sauce we'll talk about, from the bowl there. So
yes, I used my standard issue side of 2 fingers of super rich Italian naan to soak up the sauce.
Bread napkin, I think, is maybe how that goes.
Yeah, but
bread
it's
sponge
I think bread napkin was originally used on this show
for cleaning.
Well, for sauce bread. I
Oh.
gave you a slice of maybe kinda okay sliced bread so you can dab up your rib sauce. I believe these are a little too good for sauce napkin and kind of too rich for sauce napkin.
Yeah.
Because they are more of a sauce scooping conveyance.
Ooh, very nice.
Whereas a bread napkin soaks it up. This is too
true.
rich. This is repels other layers of stuff. What with the butter?
Butter and its Maillardness. Yes, you're right. There is a protective exterior on the focaccia toast, which it might take a while for things to soak in. So you're right. Maybe more of a bread scoop. I'm glad you touched on the richness as well, and we can talk about this throughout. But the portion size here is very decent. The pasta dishes, and you're talking a house-made pasta here with all sorts of stuff. They run in the teens is where your pasta price point persists, but there is something deeply satisfying about a single bowl of this pasta. And there are some rich ingredients here. And man, a lot of folks may hit halfway on the pasta and start to feel kind of full.
Yeah, it'll slow you down. I mean, we here on Saturday, Omaha, even when we had, I would say, quite good eating habits when we were originally doing this. That's how we got Saturday. We were eating very little during the week,
Right.
And then that one day, Saturday, we would eat a whole heck of a lot.
Uh-huh.
So we have become trained professionals
It's true.
on consuming a whole heck of a lot of food in one sitting.
Yes.
In almost a don't try this at home kind of way.
True.
Most places we go to, we do a Saturday episode and we need to know about multiple things. So if it's a single visit, we're probably ordering multiple entrees.
True.
I keep trying, this is like my second or third attempt now to order more than one entree at WD Cravings. I do not ever get through the second entree. I can eat maybe half of each. I can eat one and kind of peck at the other a little bit. But here's the thing. From TJ's perspective, most places that you are, I know I went on that soliloquy about pasta and talked about how satisfying it is when you know the language. Most places are doing it from a box, and that is fine.
Yeah, it's good too.
Yeah, factory-made pasta, I mean, you dry it on purpose.
Uh-huh.
It's good that way.
Nothing
There's
wrong with
nothing
that.
wrong with shipped-in pasta.
For sure.
However, your average and even your well above average boxed or bagged pasta is not this satisfying and not this filling. For TJ, pasta is not food. It is a conveyance for food. It is just a thing that is pleasantly textured to carry the meat and the sauce and all that stuff into my face. The WD Cravings pasta is absolutely food, and there is no denying that, in addition to how satisfying the texture, and we're going to be talking about texture all dang episode we are, because there's a lot to be said there. But in addition to how satisfying the texture is, the taste is highly pleasant. It's egg and flour. It's a bready pasta-y item. There's a touch more richness, I would say, in the flavor than most.
That egg yolk in there, very likely. And that may depend on the shape, too, because I'm not sure if there's egg yolk in all of them,
Right.
but that does
So
add a
it's-
richness to it.
It's nice in that regard, but man, above all else, it is shockingly filling. It is you have a bowl of pasta and you are done. TJ, the 2 to 3 entree person, has one serving, one entree from WD, and even if it's relatively light on the sauce, if it is mostly pasta with just enough sauce to give it some flavor, I am still done.
The mac and cheese, it was delicious. Shells, cheese, peppers, mushrooms, chicken, balance, tasty. Tej, what's next?
Well, Dave, I'll tell you what's next. The mac and cheese is next. What? You stole my closer.
Oh.
And now I'm stealing your thunder by talking about the third entree I got. So I told you, one entree is enough. I bought 2 because I wanted to have 2 things. I could not resist ordering
Yeah.
another thing we will talk about specifically. It's almost the thing and,
Oh
like,
my.
because it's
yes
that
and?
kind of good.
Uh-huh.
And I did a build your own pasta. So I had these 3 things, and I knew for certain, I thought I might get through like 1.5, maybe. I did not get through 1.5. I thought I might get through 1.5. So the third thing came to me in a takeout container because that's how I asked for it.
that's right, you
I got
got-
the mac and cheese as a third entree that I knew I wasn't going to touch at all, but I hadn't tried the mac and cheese before. So takeout container for that,
Yes.
and took it home.
Yes, which I do appreciate because we ate in at this last meal here, and we had all our wonderful hot, fresh entrees at the table. And I appreciate that Chef Wendy Delgado got your to-go stuff way late in the meal so that it would go home hot and fresh as possible, which I appreciate.
Again, would you look at that thoughtful
Yes.
preparation in all things?
Yes, indeed.
So we're going to talk about the mac and cheese, Dave, but I had a different mac and cheese than you did. It's
Oh.
the same mac and cheese,
Oh.
but in a bowl
Uh-huh.
that then traveled home
Yes.
and sat in the fridge
Oh.
and then was put in the microwave.
Oh?
Yes.
What happened?
I don't know how you break this food.
It's still
I
good.
have no idea. I've taken it home, and I know, like, Chef Katrina sauces a little bit more heavily because
I
the pasta
love.
will absorb the sauce on the way home.
Sure.
And you don't want weird, fluffy pasta with no sauce.
Right.
So we fix that problem with preparation. So the drive-through fine dining cuisine actually works in the drive-through and will survive the trip home. But I thought something would go wrong with this. So the sauce is broken, and what I get out of that is if you've made a homemade Alfredo sauce, it lasts as long as you keep it warm. And I don't mean with a flame under it. I mean, the best thing for your homemade Alfredo sauce is a thermos, a vacuum flask, tureen, an insulated tureen, something to keep it warm.
I carry a cheese flask on my hip at all times.
Absolutely. And as soon as you try and warm it back up, most of them will break or change texture. They are not going to be the same. If it's a real, proper, fresh cheese sauce, it's nearly impossible. So my sauce breaks. And now I have a slightly gritty texture, which is what happens because the protein's over here. The liquid elements, the oil from the cheese, whatever butter you have in there, all that stuff are now separate things.
Mm-hmm. Your emulsion is gone.
Yes. And the flavor is similar,
Uh-huh.
but now the elements are separate. So I have that slight grittiness, and those are, and it's still not gritty because it's still cheese. It's gritty in the same way like a granulated Parmesan is when it melts.
Sure.
So I have that as its own thing now, and it's got the salt and the savory, and then both have a little bit of nuttiness to them. Both the liquid side, the butteriness, and the solid side. So I have this buttery and nutty and cheesy richness over here, and I have this salty pop of savory, cheesy with a little bit of that nuttiness over there.
Uh-huh.
And it's crazy good this way. And still somehow after the sauce breaks, it's still distributed evenly enough. There's a little bit more of that buttery, oily goodness in the bottom of the bowl than there is on the rest of it. But it's still distributed pretty darn evenly. It still looks good. Like even the presentation is still nice while I'm going through it. So that's my first thing, is that curious cheese sauce combo where somehow the two parts are as good as the whole somehow.
It's been said, right? You start with really good ingredients, and even if your sauce breaks, it's still good, apparently. Okay.
So I've got that going for me, and then we start to get into it. Now the chicken.
Yes.
You mentioned the style of the chicken. It is a little bit thinner.
I'm going to go cutlet.
I should actually ask if it is a pounded and then breaded preparation. I would suspect so.
I'm guessing because I think it's very similar to the chicken parmesan, and as restaurant prep would go, if you're making one style of chicken, one for your parmesan happens to have cheese and sauce on it, and the other one for the fried chicken is literally fried chicken.
So you got a couple of, as you put it, flanks of chicken where they're not quite cut all the way through. Mine were almost sprinkled like one would do with, we mentioned the tortilla strips earlier.
Interesting.
If you were making yourself like a bean dip, you sprinkle a few strips on top.
Yeah.
That was kind of the effect. You got flanks of chicken. I got a phalanx of chicken. There was quite a bit of cohesively united together, but still
moving forward in the same direction.
Individual separated strips of chicken. So
Phalanx
I'm
of
getting
chicken.
bits. I had to say phalanx of chicken on top of my cheese sauce, and it's kind of chicken just like Mom used to make. And this is a private moment between hosts here, Dave.
Hello, yes.
You remember when Mom would do breaded chicken cutlets and pan fry them? And again, the chicken itself tastes like modern chicken. It's okay.
Yes.
But it is a vehicle
Yes.
for the Maillard of the breading. That tasty brown certain something, the goldenness of the chicken cutlet breading. Yes, Dave.
Can you and I both say Maillard at the same time? Because I think that might convey how good the Maillard reaction is, like on a 3, 2, 1, Maillard. Oh, that was nice and golden. Okay.
You have that golden
Maillard
on top of this, and the chicken is conveying that wonderful, tasty flavor that is at once simple and reassuring and complex, which really, when you're looking at mac and cheese, despite the fact that this is very different from, your average, it is famously a comfort food.
Yes.
So this brought that across to me strongly, and frankly is delicious, especially as a counterpoint to that rich, salty, still somewhat creamy cheese sauce on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm enjoying the ever-loving stuffing out of this.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely wonderful. And I get a few forkfuls in, and then I strike the bottom of the bowl.
Oh, tink.
Well, Dave, this is a takeout item.
Yeah.
So it's had time to sit in the bowl in the car.
Okay.
And shake around on the drive.
Yeah.
And kind of settle. And we actually took a couple of detours related to this. So it has quite a bit of time in the car.
Yeah, and we
to
did
jiggle
not
around and
use
settle.
your gyroscopically balanced takeout device for this. So, okay, so a
Well,
little
it's my
jostle.
fault for forgetting to bring it in the
Again.
insulated heating bag.
Yes, the vacuum sealed one. Mhm.
Correct. So it had time for the ingredients to settle to the bottom. So, well, there is a small amount of green pepper, or it might be red pepper, actually. I didn't notice a color. I just noticed the bell pepper flavor.
Sure.
There is some of that throughout. But the mushrooms,
Yeah.
the sliced in little tiny thin strips mushrooms had all settled to the bottom. Here's the chicken. Here's the cheese sauce. Oh, this is really good. I'm really enjoying this. I am shocked at how good this is microwaved. And then I get to the bottom and I hit the mushrooms.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other experience.
Yes.
A hint of childhood struck me.
Oh.
I have always had trouble defining in La Casa Pizza what I like about La Casa Pizza in my memory. And there's a certain sort of almost sweet, lightly brassy, as a bell pepper would be, but not that same kind of just a hint of brassiness to it, and a deep umami unctuousness.
Ooh.
It's one of the most amazing things I've ever eaten. My microwave takeout drive-through food is one of the most. It was perfect, and your mileage may vary. Your memories, taste is highly subjective.
Sure.
But this was incredible and delicious and wonderful, and one of the best food experiences I have had in recent memory.
Wow. Well,
And that's why it was my closer, and why I just stole your thunder, I think, on your mac and cheese review, because we just did like half a show on mac and cheese.
I mean, if it was that good, then, let the time dictate the deliciousness of the dish. And of course, since we just got done talking about a whole bunch of chicken and pasta and cheese sauce, that naturally leads me into talking about the brisket rice bowl, TJ.
at the fancy Italian restaurant,
That's
the brisket rice bowl,
The brisket rice bowl. So,
that serves fancy things at breakfast,
well,
and at dinner,
and that's,
in a comfortable, casual place.
yes,
That's also fancy.
yes.
Right.
The brisket
I'm
rice bowl.
confused.
Right?
Tell me about the brisket rice bowl.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're really confused, you can just go to the case and get an apple pie, a cannoli, or possibly, a tiramisu if they have that going. I didn't see that there. I did see the cannoli and the apple pie and small, tiny cakes. But
I know you saw that apple pie. I watched you try and fight the
know.
urge to go get a
I
delicious
know.
tiny apple pie the entire meal.
I don't think I could have fit it in next to the pasta. But let's talk about the brisket rice bowl. So again, an unexpected thing. I honestly didn't even know this was on the menu. This is one I was looking at the menu and I was like, what? So rice, obviously, because it's a rice bowl. The peppers and mushrooms are back in this rice bowl with the addition of some sliced cabbage in here. But here's what kind of takes it again to the next level. There's a little starch on this starch, but crispy starch, because you have the rice and then you have some crispy home fried perfectly salted potatoes to go with this rice and small chopped pieces of brisket. And here's the kicker. There is a nice runny fried egg sitting on top. So I've got my rice, I've got my brisket pieces, mushrooms, peppers, cabbage, topped with a fried egg. And you may recall, or you may not, but that's okay, TJ. When I went in there and I'm about to hit the fork on the top of the egg, and I'm like, man, I hope this thing breaks open and gives me some nice egg yolk on my dish. Oh, yes, it did. So now I have the egg yolk acting as the sauce for my rice and potatoes and brisket and cabbage, and this is wild. It's awesome.
See, Dave, I was entirely unaware of your inner monologue, which we've been brothers for some time, so
It's
that's
true.
I'm frequently aware of your internal monologue, but I didn't hear it this time. What I did hear was Dave puts his fork on egg. Dave breaks egg. Egg yolk blooms into tasty
Yes,
egg yolky,
yes.
saucy goodness. And Dave says, I believe exactly, yes, chef. Ah. There's the sauce.
You may not be wrong there. And this was such a great mix, and I guess I sort of expected a riff on a Korean rice bowl, because I've got beef, I've got cabbage, I've got, all these things in here and rice, etc. But no, and there isn't a sweet sauce or hoisin sauce or gochujang or gochujaro or anything like there's not Korean flavors happening. This is at once a straightforward ingredient bowl, but because of that egg yolk, mixing it together becomes a dish. And the home fried potatoes are perfectly crisp. The brisket is a smaller dice, which works well for this bowl because the veggies, the brisket, the rice, the potatoes are all of similar size. I think everything could fit on a teaspoon easily. Probably 2 pieces of brisket on a teaspoon, 1 home fried potato. But you can get a mix of ingredients too, and you can kind of throttle how you want your flavors to happen. If you want a little brisket with rice, a little brisket with rice, veggies, you want to pick up a potato with rice, veggies, and brisket and sauce and make it all happen. And this was an unexpected delight here simply because maybe I just know what to expect. I've had the pasta here numerous times, and so I know the deliciousness that I'm about to encounter. I haven't had any dishes from here with rice up until this, and because of the mix of those different things, we have said balance before. I will say it again. Balance in this bowl, leaning towards the savory side of the scale, very much so with those different ingredients in there. I didn't get that citrus pop, but I don't think I'd want it here. Maybe some lime. No, I don't think I would. I think I like the tripling down of the savory ingredients here. And I found this very, very enjoyable to eat. Would 100% eat this. If you set that on my plate, I'm eating it. And it was really that fried egg that just made it for me. Yeah, I could probably even eat it without the brisket. I'd want the brisket, but really runny fried egg and these perfect veggies and some crispy potatoes and just so many good options. And it was so good, and I really enjoyed it. What else did you get, TJ?
Well, Dave, I had a lot of items to decide between, even after I kind of narrowed things down, and I tried to combine 2 by doing a build-your-own pasta.
Aha.
So I had the mafalda.
Ooh, important safety tip that we should throw out there, and you kind of said this when we were getting ready to order, is one side of the menu is like a build your own pasta, build your own rice bowl. So if you want to pick and choose your ingredients, that's available. Or as TJ was kind of getting to as we were sitting there, he's like, man, this side of the menu could be challenging because there's so many options. The other side of the menu has those preset dishes like the brisket rice bowl that I got, or the mac and cheese are ready to go for you.
But I wound up trying to combine 2 of the preset things into a build-your-own pasta with white sauce mafalda, mushrooms, oh goodness, the mushrooms, pesto, and meatball. Because I kind of wanted pesto, and I think I was trying to combine the pesto parmigiana. Come to think of it.
Okay, yeah, because that's a dish that's available. Yeah,
yeah. So I wanted something a little cheesy and pesto-y, and I combined these things, and wound up with something pretty good that we'll go over fairly quickly because the mafalda is my standout for doing this.
Good.
And we will talk about that in my next dish, and I believe your next dish as well. The white sauce is a good base white sauce. It's the same as on the mac and cheese, I do believe, because they both feature white sauce. As I'm adding white sauce, but the mac and cheese specifically says white sauce. The mafalda, again, we'll go over later. My surprise on this are 2 things. One, the pesto, which is rather powerful and flavorful. So there was just a little dollop. It was an add-on actually under the vegetable section.
Oh, okay.
And just a little dollop on top. And I thought, I wanted more pesto than this. It's not really going to cover the whole thing. Oh, it's pretty strong. You spread it out along your noodles, or in the case of these long mafalda noodles, you just kind of have one end on your fork and the other end on the other side of the pesto and start twirling. I'd get just a little tiny bit of it along the edge, and that was enough of that tasty basil-y richness to flavor the whole thing as desired.
Okay.
So it is...
Chef knew what they were doing.
I suppose eat before you judge.
There you go.
Because again, I thought there should be more. No, that really was about the perfect amount, and it's a nice pesto. It's just very surprisingly strong. Again, the amount was correct.
Perfect.
So there, and the meatball. I like the meatball on the breakfast sandwich.
Okay.
That said, and
Yes.
I like chefs so much. I don't even want to say that something was, middling ever. But these are not my favorite meatball of all time.
Okay.
I
People
feel
have
there's
preferences.
Yeah, I feel there's more red pepper in here, which that could be partially from chef's own twist and influences. You could argue that's more Sicilian. I think they use a lot of red pepper, but it's definitely a more spicy meatball in terms of that's a spicy meatball. It's more of a spicy meatball in terms of the heat. And
Okay.
as well as I notice more of a spice mix going into it.
I see.
I like my Italian meatball a little bit more mild, and this is very dense, not unpleasantly so, but my preferred style, and now I can say it because it's in the secret annals of history.
Yes.
The way Malaras used to do them, where it's a
Rest
very
in peace, Malaras.
very large, at once satisfyingly meaty, but also kind of light, almost.
Sure.
I've said fluffy disparagingly of a number of kinds of meat. This is a delicious way to do it. the
Yeah,
way
you
they
don't.
did.
You
So
like
I-
your meatballs fluffy, but not your burgers.
Yeah,
'Cause
very
then
much.
it's a meatball.
Yeah, very much. Yes, correct.
Uh-huh.
I suppose
Yeah.
I hadn't really put two and two together in my own head on that one before, but correct.
Here
I
to
don't
help
like a meatball for my burger. I like a meatball for my meatball.
There you go.
In this case, it is still a meatball, but it's a little bit more dense than I usually like them.
Okay.
Still decent, but probably not the thing I would choose as my protein on most of the pasta going forward.
I see.
For me, it goes on the breakfast sandwich.
Okay.
For those ordering, be aware that it is a more spiced, both in terms of the actual spices and in terms of the heat meatball. So if you want that kind of things, by all means. If not, I'd say probably go with the fried chicken, which is delicious and should be put on everything ever.
So with that, then I was gonna say there's an important special thing that I need to talk about because it's unique, and it is important. But so are all of these other things that we've been talking about. I mean, we've moved from, the short rib breakfast sandwich. We've talked about a rice bowl. We've talked about a mac and cheese. We didn't really dig into the desserts. Try the chocolate peanut cake. It's delicious. But this is another unique thing to WD Cravings in this area anyway, and that is the cheese wheel. TJ, on the preparation counter there where things are happening is a gigantic wheel of Grana Padano cheese, and it's a delicious parm. And what they do is they take like a chisel and a hammer or some such and knock the top off of this large wheel of cheese. And then when you order the cheese wheel, they get really hot pasta that I believe still has a little bit of that nice starchy water when you cook pasta. And they throw it in the wheel of cheese and then mix it around, and the heat and liquid turn that Grana Padano cheese into a sauce and are thoroughly saucing your pasta. And this is a very unique thing for the Omaha area. I know of one other place in Nebraska that you can get it, and really it's just kind of a neat thing, period. First of all, you have high quality pasta, you have high quality cheese, and then you can top that with your choice of protein. Our dining guest that was with us, actually we'll say the voice of Saturday Omaha, as she has been often referred to, got this with the chicken parmesan. We have talked about the chicken before, but of course now you have red sauce on here, and thankfully I was able to snag a bite of this, and this was not the first time I have had the cheese wheel. Good garlic flavor on there, but I'll tell you, I think that this would be good to go, but you gotta do this dine in so you can watch them take this pasta and swirl it around this giant, I don't know, 20 some odd inch diameter wheel of cheese and just make that super duper sauce and then top it with your choice of protein. It is at once a showpiece and also a brilliant culinary creation for your plate. And it's delicious, and you get to pick that protein. I have had it with the meatballs. I like the meatballs here. I think the extra little bit of peppery goodness within the meatballs, because the cheese, in this case, you have that pasta cheese, making it happen within there is a good cohort, a good counterpoint to the beefiness and more highly peppered meatball. Good contrast in flavors and makes a balanced dish when combining those things together. This is cool. This is unique. This is awesome. You got to see it and you got to try it. It is really, really good. TJ, you got one more dish that I had a really, really hard time not ordering because it might be my most favorite thing on the menu because it is so good. And I'm not going to say it because you're going to talk about it. So, TJ, what is that last thing that I love so much that I did not order and you did?
You know the weird truth on this one, Dave? I'm going to say its name.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say a little bit about it.
Uh-huh.
And then I think I'm going to pass it over to you because I love this.
Okay.
I had it as a drive-through offering, and then because I tried to do 2 entrees the first time I ordered this,
tried.
and this was my second one,
Yes.
I did not get very far into it, and I kind of expected it more with this. But as with the macaroni and cheese, which I did not expect this with,
Delicious.
it kind of improves with time, which is almost the point of the sauce in this case, the low and slow grouping of flavors. Dave, I had the beef bolognese. A deeply savory, certainly rich sauce.
The deepest depths of flavor sauce.
You know, I wouldn't even go that far myself.
Oh, I would. It was
It's
delicious.
very tasty. There's a depth to a long simmered, very tomato heavy sauce that I think almost feels deeper to me. But it's a brownish, not quite mahogany kind of color. It's highly rich. This is lovely and savory. This time through, I got more of the pasta than the sauce, which I think is partially from that lack of toss, and partially from presentation or somewhat literally vehicle, because I had it in a big
a wider, shallower bowl than the takeout.
a wider, shallower bowl when served to me on the plate, whereas in the drive-through preparation,
Squat deep bowl.
yes. Well, it's not a squat deep bowl. It can't be both.
I know. So it's a deep, smaller diameter
Yes,
bowl.
a smaller diameter and a deeper bowl with that pasta really packed in there, so it's right up next to the sauce and kind of sitting in it on the way home. It almost marinates. If you are doing the drive-through thing, it's so good eat in. But I think if you're doing the drive-through thing, this is your best bet because it's a low and slow, slow simmer kind of forever sauce to begin with. So the amount of time that it sits and has a chance to marry with those noodles, which do still stay firm and delicious by the time you get them home, or even on reheating, they're still good that way. They have time to kind of marry and meld together, and that works very well there. Briefly, once more, on the Mafalda pasta.
Yes, please.
Delicious. Delicious isn't right because I'm describing texture. A wonderful. Oh, I'm going to use this phrase. Okay. I'm going to make people slightly angry. A small percentage of people slightly angry. Right in the mic and say, mouthfeel. It has an excellent mouthfeel. That Ripley texture on the side, smooth and flat in the middle. I tried to find the laminations and did not notice them in this. I believe it to be kind of an extruded pasta. So more of a smooth feel when you bite down on it, even when it's al dente. And also, it's possible I'm also distracted by the ripples in it because there's certainly a more
extra texture element.
Yeah, they assert themselves as a textural element far more.
Yeah, because they are tiny, less wide lasagna noodles.
Yes.
Yeah,
and the length of noodle is important to me, regardless of region of cuisine. I mean, I do like me some mostaccioli or what have you every now and again. Some farfalle or whatever you got.
Yeah.
But really long noodles, so when I bite into them, the grouping of noodles, the layers around my fork are important.
You get a third textural layer element because, like you said, with the handmade pasta, you have some multiple layers. We talked about that in the pasta that you and I made with Chef. But in this case, right, you've got ripples on the pasta. Then you have a tangle on your fork of these noodles, and you go get and then layers and space in between, and it's an enjoyable bite.
I was trying not to. I even made sure to be fully honest on the meatballs not being my favorite meatballs because I didn't want to make this a love fest. But dang it, it's a love fest. It really is. I have no other way to do it with this at once simple and casual and also complex and deep food.
Yep.
It's just something kind of special.
It really is.
It's a nice place to be, and I think your takeaways will probably be different than mine. There are enough elements here that anyone within the sound of my voice can go in and I think leave happy and satisfied, but possibly for completely different reasons than I'm thinking.
That's a good call.
And I think just about every dish, I mean, you and I have different takeaways from just about everything we've discussed. We meet up on a number of things, but there are so many little elements, little nuances and things to pick up on. And depending on your mindset on the day,
harmonics, if you will.
Depending on your mindset on the day, when you're eating in, for instance, even the ambiance of the restaurant, to your brain, your perception will make it more fancy or more casual, depending on where your head is at that day. That balance knob, your little left right on your
little
on your
fader
stereo,
front to back too.
He said, proving his age. Your balance knob on your stereo, whether or not it's turned more towards fancy or more towards casual, is strongly going to depend on the day, because there's enough there. You will have takeaways that suit you, like song lyrics.
I love it, and that's an excellent summary. If you were with us at the beginning of the episode, we started with dessert first in our description because we were kind of doing the summary before we even started. But I think that's a good reprise, if you will. There was well done, TJ. And you mentioned depending on where you turn those knobs is where your head might go. You can sit on the patio. You can go through the drive-thru. You could eat in. You could eat next to the fireplace that's sitting there, or not. You could look up
at the super secret table behind the fireplace.
Or,
I see you back there.
Or you could look up at the rafters and see that there's ivy with lights twined around the rafters. And you could head over to the French patisserie case and get a tiny pie, a small cake, a cake covered in chocolate and crunchy peanuts. Or you could get an Italian soda or pasta or a rice bowl. There's just so many things to have here. It is a wide menu of different things, and you can try just about anything. And like you said, you're going to enjoy yourself. I do agree, TJ. If you're going to get to go, I think the beef mafalde with the bolognese on there, I think would be the move. If you're going to eat in, cheese sauce might be the way to go. I think that cheese wheel is definitely something to experience. With that, then, I think we will wrap up the wrap-up by saying that I'm Dave.
I'm TJ.
And we are Saturday Omaha. Thank you so much for your ear time listening to us. If you missed anything, please check out the podcast. You can head over to SaturdayOmaha.com for buttons and links to various things that are interesting. And as we say, until we eat again, stay hungry. Bye. Our show is recorded and produced by Saturday Omaha. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as email SaturdayOmaha@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and stay hungry.
Saturday Omaha.
Eat this.